Hello, I'm Pika, and welcome back. Regardless of what rank you are, what weapon you're holding, or what game mode you're queuing into, everyone who plays Splatoon 3 plays on the same battle stages, or maps. This means that map design heavily influences the way everyone plays the game, and accounting for map layouts and creatively using everything they provide is essential for winning games. Most players have no problems going from their spawn area to the middle of the map, but sometimes they take that same pathing too often and miss out on other possibilities. See, I've noticed a trend recently. It's that whenever I hear of someone struggling to get things done in their games, whether it be difficulty finding openings for aggressive plays or trouble dealing with long-range weapons like chargers and crab tanks, 99% of the time, the reason for this is that they're spending too much time in mid and don't utilize the sides of the map nearly enough, missing out on all the utility those areas provide. That's a pretty broad statement, so what do I mean by the sides of the map, and how exactly do they open the game up so much? First, what I mean by the sides of the map is essentially any area that immediately surrounds the true middle of the map, or mid. That also isn't the most straightforward path between your spawn and mid. On Inkbot Art Academy, for example, you wouldn't really consider the plat area between your spawn and mid to be a side area, since it's the fastest and most centralized path to get to mid. But the tree areas on the left and rights of mid, as well as the drop areas to reach them out of your spawn, would be considered sides. Now how about what controlling the sides gives you? First of all, I want to clarify that by controlling, what I mean is that your team has those areas turfed in your color, not necessarily that someone has to be physically positioned there all of the time. As is fundamental to Splatoon, painting an area is essential to being able to move around in it, so as soon as you have the sides painted, they become something you and your team can freely swim to and from, and overall it gives you more space to work with compared to just controlling mid. This alone puts pressure on the other team to be worried about someone flanking or lurking on the sides even if someone isn't actually there, which leaves them with two options. If they choose to take a dive into mid without clearing out the sides first, that means anyone who actually may have been there has a free chance to attack from behind and quickly put an end to that push. If the other team decides to be safe and clear the sides first before going into mid, then they have to reveal what angle they're coming from early, giving your team plenty of time to react. Additionally, they may even resort to using a few specials to try and get you out of the sides first, meaning they won't have those specials later on to help them in a larger team fight in mid and give your team an extra advantage. Either way, controlling the sides presents the other team with a hard choice that makes retaking mid for them much more complicated. And keep in mind that mid is important since it acts as a central hub leading to all other positions on the map. It is also where objective and ranked mode is typically located, so the other team will be trying to take it back after they lose it. Sides aren't just useful for defense though. Something subtle yet important is that going to the sides to paint them is also a free way to charge your special. Between the off angles side positions can give you, and the increased special output you'll get for going out of your way to paint them, you'll find many more opportunities to go for aggressive pushes yourself by playing around them. Overall, I'm still generalizing quite a lot, since as we know map layouts in this game can vary drastically, so let's use some specific map examples. As part of this though, I also want to talk about how map layouts have changed in Splatoon 3 and how that ties into this conversation. Many players have noticed a distinct difference in how maps from Splatoon 2 play out compared to new ones for Splatoon 3, along with the heavily modified versions of Splatoon 1 maps. And at least in my opinion, this has a lot to do with how mid is designed. In Splatoon 2, maps would tend to have a lot going on in mid, with terrain that provides plenty of cover and high ground vantage points. As we mentioned earlier, mid is also going to be significant for any map since it links every part of the map together and is a hotspot for team fights as the neutral ground and key positions for ranked objectives. Since this map design approach also gives plenty of terrain to play around in mid, you can still get a lot of things done as a team without really using the sides. All the benefits of using the sides I described before still apply, and I'd still say they're important to use, but they almost feel more like bonuses on top of the already powerful positions you could take in mid. Repeating Inkblot as an example, the mid pillar and splat zones in Turf War evenly divides the otherwise wide open space, and standing on top of it gives you the most commanding high ground position over the entirety of mid. Another example is Mako Mart, where there's so many elevation changes and tight corners to hide behind that long range sightlines can be really hard to find over mid. And again, the two high ground stack areas on the sides of zone give key high ground positions right in the center of the action. Now let's compare that to the average map design in Splatoon 3. Something people noticed almost right away with this game is just how flat and open mid on these new maps feel. Between there being few direct pieces of cover and the elevation in mid being either completely flat or very gradually changing, it's easy to feel vulnerable while playing in mid for a long period of time, especially against those long-range chargers and crab tanks that we mentioned earlier who would love nothing more than to take shots at you being wide open from such a safe distance. However, side areas still exist, and by having mid be more open, the extra covers that side areas provide automatically becomes far more valuable. Take Brinewater Springs and Hagglefish Market for instance. Both of these maps have large, wide open areas directly in mid that feel unforgiving to play in for most weapons. Brinewater has effectively no cover in the center of the map aside from a singular box or pillow depending on the mode, leaving anyone there incredibly exposed to the surrounding high ground the other team has right off of spawn. However, the sides offer plenty of cover along with multiple angles to come back up into mid, and are also easily accessible from your own spawn, making them great entry points into mid or solid rest areas to fall back into if the open space around you gets too dicey. Similarly, Hagglefish is wide open outside of the two towers on the sides of zone, but the drop downs to both sides of mid offer plenty of cover and solid paths to close distance on the other team. So for these new maps, not only does using the sides give all the benefits I talked about at the beginning, but they also provide cover and repositioning options that are absent in mid itself. To put it super simply, Splatoon 3 maps encourage you to use the sides of the map, at least if you aren't a backline weapon, much more than Splatoon 2 maps did. Now I know what some of you are thinking. What about the Splatoon 3 maps to make mid super linear and narrow, like Mincemeat and Eeltail? There's no sides to play on there. And to that I would say you're right. Ish, kinda sorta. Let's go back again to the original benefits of playing the sides of the map that I brought up before. One of those was that controlling sides forces your opponent to push through more space and burn resources such as specials earlier than they wish to in order to get close enough to mid to even contest it in the first place. The way I see it is that these maps take that idea and amplify it. Since mid on maps like Mincemeat, Eeltail Alley, and Undertow Spillway are so narrow and open, you're encouraged as the attacking team to really push through mid in order to secure a good hold over the map. If you just take mid and then stay where you are, you not only have very little cover to play around still, but you also have very little room to move around in such a narrow space, so it feels even worse to be in than mid normally does. What these maps have in common though, is that once you break past mid, the map opens up again and gives way to what might actually resemble side areas. This is by far the most pronounced on Undertow, where this gives you access to the glass area on the right and the wide space to the left. Looking at these two things, is there anything that seems familiar? On the right side glass area, we have an aggressive high ground position that oversees most of mid, and on the left, we have a lot of space to freely move around and plenty of ledges to use as cover. Between these positions, we now have all the benefits of terrain that was traditionally in mid itself on Splatoon 2 maps like Mako Mart. These maps don't lack these pieces of utility, you just really have to go out of your way and work harder for it. I don't want to turn this into a big game design philosophy tangent, but I'm honestly quite a big fan of this approach, since it encourages using the full extent of the stage instead of focusing most of your resources and attention strictly to mid and the most direct route into it most of the time. Overall, this further drives home the idea that this game really wants you to do more than stand in mid, or else it'll be free food for those E-leaders. As a quick point, I want to clarify that I'm not saying to never use mid. Like we've gone over multiple times, mid will always be important inherently due to its position, significance to objective, and function as a hub to the rest of the map. The point I'm really trying to make is that you'll find much more success in your games if you make an active effort to try different approach options into mid if you're trying to retake, and go out of your way to paint up the sides of the map and use them for extra mobility, map coverage, and special points if you're defending your own hold, compared to the alternative of hyper-focusing exclusively on mid and the most direct path to it. All of this is especially true for any weapon looking to get aggressive and get its team forward, though I'd say long-range backline weapons are a bit of an exception, since those weapons have such an easy time punishing any enemy who tries to run into mid without a second thought. They should actively look to continue using mid in that way, and force the other team to either use the sides of the map themselves or continue to lose. To wrap things up, let's drive it all home by going over how using the full extent of the map helps you win in every game mode. In Splat Zones, controlling the space around the zone and around mid effectively doubles up as the same thing, and gives the same benefit of either forcing opponents to use their specials early to approach the zone rather than directly on it, or letting you flank them from an off angle while they're focusing their shots forward into mid while trying to cap the zone. On tower control at Rainmaker, mobility is everything, so the more space you have to move around in and the more flanks available to you and your team, the more opportunities you'll have to push the objective forward. The extra special output in preparation against opposing flanks that comes from having the sides painted preemptively also goes a long way. For Turf War and Clan Blitz, not only do all these same benefits apply, but both of these modes require you to have broad control of the map anyway. For Turf War, paint coverage translates directly into score, and on Clan Blitz, having the sides of the map covered lets you find and access clan pods to prepare your push much easier. And that's actually the end of what I have to say on maps in this video, so if you're just here for the guide, feel free to click away, and I hope you found it interesting. It's been a while since I made a video like this though, so I want to take a quick moment to talk about this last year and all of that. The last few uploads have been different from what I normally do, and I'm glad that they've been received well. Competing is something I'll always be doing, and it's what I play this game for primarily, so making videos that highlight tournament sets or hype matches or anything like that is pretty easy to do, and at this rate, I definitely think I'll continue to make those. That being said, guides like these also aren't going anywhere, don't worry. Videos like these take a lot of time and energy to make, and I'd like to take my time with them, so I'm pretty happy to keep things like this and having gameplay highlights and tournament sets pass the time and give some variety while I work on larger projects at my own pace. I'd be glad to hear what y'all think about that too though. Lastly, I also just want to genuinely say thank you for all the support this last year. Originally, I had set 1,000 subs as my goal for the end of 2022, and we ended up more than doubling that. The support on my videos, especially since the launch of Splatoon 3, has been insane, and I'm still wrapping my head around the fact that something I do simply as a way to share my knowledge and passion for a game that I love has reached so many people and has even begun to generate some revenue. So I just want to say thank you again, and I'm excited to keep improving and see what comes next. As always y'all, thanks for watching, and have a good one.